This is a Skroo. It's a very nice screw. It's a Phillips head screw. This is what you call a wood screw, I believe. Yeah, it's meant to screw into wood. It's a nice screw. It's got a nice finish on it, and seems like it's pretty well made. Some precision went into making this screw. And it might seem kind of boring to a lot of people. Just a screw, right? It's just a screw. It's a screw. This is a screw. That's it. It's a screw. All right. Maybe that's gone on long enough. If you're still here, then this is where it gets interesting, all right? Because it's not just a screw, all right? This screw has magical powers. And I'm going to display those magical powers to you right now by putting this screw in a special part of the dimension, of the universe, of the timeline, where this screw can magically go through an incredible transformation. That's right, an incredible transformation right before your very eyes. And I'm just going to put up a better title. Right? Maybe I can use this in the thumbnail because, I need to get those views up. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, guys. Just don't seem to be getting those views. So here we go. We've got the magical title. And now, ready or not, I'm going to magically transform this screw. Abracadabra, hocus pocus, and whoop-de-doo. Whoa. Now, this screw, along with its brethren, have magically become bolts. Now, for some reason, this screw is a bolt because it's put in this little family here. What do you think about that, huh? All right, well, this is where the guitar building journey kind of started for me, was getting some neck plates. There was this store on eBay, and I think they're one of those stores that they get guitars that have like maybe a little problem or something, and then they part them out, right? They just kind of delete the part that's broken or dinged or scratched or discolored or something, and then they sell all the rest of the parts, which are all perfectly good. Kind of like a junkyard, I guess, but they're dealing in new parts. But back, whatever it was, 8, 9, 10 years ago or so, I noticed that they had put up. Because you can imagine, every Fender guitar that they get has got one that, or something like this or something similar. You can imagine they probably had piles of these things. So they put up a bunch of listings all in a row, all a few minutes apart, and there were a dozen of them at least. And they put them all up at 99 cents, starting bid. What I thought was, if I get a bunch of them, then I could combine the shipping, which they were totally cool with, and get a bunch of these things for next to nothing. I got about a half dozen, or about 8 of these, I think, for really next to nothing. Probably $1 or $2 each, if you include shipping. And so this is where it all started. Once I had all of these neck plates and screws that were real Fender, parts, that's when I said, okay, this is the part that brings it together. And that's moving on to another, idea here is that, that's really the moment that is really so satisfying when you're putting these things together. It just becomes this solid, almost like one piece if you do it right. And that's just that moment is is the transition, the magical transformation that takes it from just being like a couple of pieces of wood, a body, and a neck, and then they come together and they make a guitar. And that's really a very satisfying moment. But there are other satisfying moments, of course, when it's done. So here's a package that I received in the mail a while ago. And, just been sitting around for a while. I've been kind of, looking forward to opening it up here. So just been waiting to make this video for you guys. And so let's open it up. Let's see what we got in the mail. Without any further ado, guys. Ah, look at that. Remember this one? It's Bjork. And this one is titled Debut. So, unlike Taylor, she actually called it Debut when it debuted. It's kind of interesting. But, yeah, this is... when is this from? This is from 1993. Oh, got a crack on the back of the case. But otherwise, it seems like it's in pretty good shape. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to take a quick look at the... This will play fine. The disc itself, guys. So anyway, yeah, and it's got everything. It's got the insert here. Looks like it's got a little handwritten note there, and all the credits. This is cool. I'm taking a look at this. But the reason I got this is because I don't know what it was. I was thinking about, electronic music, sample-based music, virtual instruments, and all this digital stuff that's happening now, and how everybody and their uncle and their cousin and their aunt and their niece and their brother and their their grandma, they can all do this stuff now with a basic laptop. And I remember when this came out, this was what kind of opened up my ears to that kind of thing. It might not be too hard to imagine that. In the earlier days, I was quite a bit of a kind of a traditionalist, maybe even a purist. To me, music was bands or groups or orchestras or that kind of thing, and it was pretty limited in what I accepted for instrumentation, right? Acoustic drums, acoustic guitar, electric 4-string bass, maybe an organ, piano, and maybe like a Moog, a synthesizer, an analog synthesizer. Those were sort of the parameters that I was accepting of. And it wasn't until this thing that I heard Human Behavior, which was the single off of this, and it's also the first track on the album. And I have to look into this. I don't really know very much about this, but I just got this because I remember hearing this and hearing that they used a timpani sample as sort of the groove, the bass line for the groove. Boom, 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 all with a timpani. And I remember hearing that, and I played a lot of timpani in my early days, and I thought, hey, that is kind of cool, actually, because it would be very difficult to play that for real on a couple of timpani. You'd be changing the pitch like a crazy person, The ones I used were the crank ones, right? You change the pitch by cranking it. But I've seen the ones, too, that have the pedals that are a little easier. And then it has the little dial in there that kind of tells you kind of what pitch you're tuning it to. I always had the crank ones. It's a public school system, and we didn't have all that much money. We had enough money for timpani, and for, you know, marching drums and stuff. But man, our marching drums were in incredibly bad shape. And anyway, that's what this is. Now I'm thinking about those drums in the marching band. Those drums were in such bad shape, and they were old, but not old in a good way. All right, not like this. This drum is definitely old and cheap, but it's in it's in pretty good shape. Calfskin heads, but the drums that we had were just sad. They were sorry. Okay, it was a sad, sorry situation with those drums, but we made it work. All right, we made it happen. And this is where it kind of started, and I'm just thinking about this now. I'm going to grab this drum for you to look at while I talk about this. This is where the need, the desire to fix stuff up kind of may have started for me, was with those old, beat up, just, barely holding together drums back then. And we didn't have a budget for upkeep, maintenance. There was none of that. They just kind of sat in the little closet thing, the little locker, and then when it was time to play them, they got pulled out. And I think for me, drums were a good place to start because it's all out there in the open, right? All of the pieces and parts, even probably the most complicated mechanism on a snare drum, right, is the strainer. And even that, you can see what's going on, especially on the older ones. You can imagine. Especially if you take the head off and then you get to see the inside, and taking the head off is, normal operating procedure for a drum. Then you see what's on the inside, and that's all very simple too. And even if the drum has lugs and you get inside the lugs, a spring and an insert, I mean, it's so simple. Everything is so simple. So it was a great way for me to start, figuring out what makes a drum go and what makes it sound bad, what makes it sound a little better maybe. The methods of figuring out stuff about drums actually translated much more into guitar than I ever realized. I mean, I knew there were electronics, and that's what sort of was intimidating to me, so I didn't want to get into it because it's like electronics. I don't know about electronics. But, it turns out that's just part of the picture. When it comes to guitar, there's a lot of stuff kind of like a drum where you have to tighten things, to a sort of a, not super tight, not loose, everything's just kind of in moderation, right? That's how things kind of like to sit with drums and guitars. I mean, yeah, you can crank the batter head up on a snare, get certain sounds and stuff, and the bottom head too. I tend to go a little tight on the bottom head, but the strands like to be just kind of a little bit tight, not too tight, right? Otherwise they start to choke things out, right? So with the guitar, it's sort of the same thing. Everything just kind of likes to be, a little bit tight, but nothing too crazy. And there's a lot of physical stuff going on with the guitar. You've got vibrations and that kind of thing, waves, right? And then certain points where the waves make contact with other parts of the drum or this guitar, and you got to sort of be conscious of that. And then the electronics were, that was a little bit of learning curve there, but it turns out that that's, some of the simplest 1940s electronics, that you could think of. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, it all started with looking at drums and literally looking at them and being able to tell what's going on just because it's all out in the open.